Hi, I'm Sarah Zimmerman, a librarian here in Chicago Public Library's Special Collections and Preservation Division.
And I'm Audrey Reed, and I work with Sarah in Special Collections.
You could say we're neighbors and that our desks are pretty close together. So that when we started reading Bedrock Faith together, this year's One Book, One Chicago selection by Eric Charles May, we were so excited about the neighborhood aspect.
Yes, and the characters who are in Bedrock Faith is so exciting.
Each day I would come in and be like, Audrey, did you get to that part? Do you know what's happening yet?
And I would say, oh my goodness, did you believe what they said? Did you believe what they did?
It was crazy, but so fun. And we came away with lots of questions and thinking about who these characters were in the book and thinking about how they matched up with some of the people we recognized in our neighborhoods and in our neighborhood collections. And we wanted to really take a dive into our collections to find out
who are the people in our neighborhoods. This year's 20th anniversary One Book, One Chicago selection is Eric Charles May's novel, Bedrock Faith.
Set in the 1990s in the fictional South Side Chicago neighborhood of Parkland, Bedrock Faith dives into the seemingly quiet lives of one block of Parkland's residents. Woven throughout the story are anecdotes about Parkland's history and some of its very real surrounding Chicago neighborhoods and suburbs, including Morgan Park, Blue Island, and Beverly.
Bedrock Faith isn't the first One Book, One Chicago selection to explore Chicago neighborhood and folks who live there. Lorraine Hensberry play A Raisin in the Sun was the 2003 One Book selection, and it's inspired by Hensberry's experience growing up in Chicago, Inglewood, and Woodlawn neighborhood.
In 1940, her father, Carol Hensberry's landmark case with the NAACP, Hensberry versus Lee, made some of the first steps ending restrictive covenants in Chicago and opened 30 blocks of housing to African Americans across the South Side.
As the story of Parkland's citizens unfold, readers are introduced to characters that might remind them of someone living on their block.
Or make them wonder who used to live next door. You may very well find yourself asking, who were the people in my neighborhood?
In Chicago Public Library's archives and special collections, we have the tools to help uncover the stories of some of the people from our neighborhood's history.
In Bedrock Faith, one of Parkland's pillars is Mrs. Motley, a retired school librarian and stalwart church member whose family has a long history in Parkland's founding and development. Looking into our Beverly Morgan Park collection, we uncovered documents that gave glimpses into the life of Louise Barwick. The more we learned about Louise, the more we could imagine her as a contemporary of one of Mrs. Motley's ancestors.
Born in 1871, the same year as the Great Chicago Fire, Louise and her family were active members at the Church of the Mediator in Morgan Park, founded in 1889.
Her father, John, served as senior warden and lay reader, and her sisters played the organ and sang. Louise and her mother contributed recipes to the church's Women's Guild cookbook.
Louise kept a collection of dance cards from parties she attended from 1894 to 1904.
The cards list her dance partners for waltzes, gallops, quadrilles, and two-steps. Several still have ribbons and laces that she would have used to wear the cards on her wrist. One even still has a tiny pencil attached.
When she wasn't dancing, Louise was creating and teaching art. She earned a teaching degree in 1891 from the Cook County Normal School in Inglewood, specializing in art.
With her degree, she returned home to Morgan Park and took on a teaching position at Clissold School. Morgan Park was the subject Louise revisited in her art. Her memory sketches of the observation tower that stood opposite the library at Armida Avenue and 111th Street, and the view from the upper level of the Clissold School where she taught art, are now part of the archives here at the library.
Along with sketching and drawing, Louise was a talented map maker. She created drawn maps of Morgan Park, its surrounding areas.
One was included as part of a dedication ceremony for a boulder placed at Lothair Avenue and Longwood Drive inscribed, to keep the memory of the Vincennes and Portage Trails, presented by the Morgan Park Women's Club. In 1893, She created a relief map of the state of Illinois using measurements gathered by geologists at the University of Illinois. She translated those numbers into modeled clay and plaster.
The finished map, measuring 10 by 17 feet, was featured in the State of Illinois building during the World's Columbian Exposition.
Louise Barwick died in 1957. Perhaps not surprisingly, her funeral was held at Church of the Mediator, the church her family helped build. The archives can tell us a lot about her and her contributions to her neighborhood, but sadly, we don't have a picture to know what she looked like. Much like the fictional Mrs. Motley and her ancestors, we can only imagine.
Using clues from the archives, we know that Louise attended Cook County Normal School in Chicago's Englewood neighborhood in the early 1890s.
If we turn to another Englewood school over 50 years later, we can follow the life of another Chicago neighbor, one we do have a picture of. Looking through the pages of the 1948 Englewood High School yearbook, one name may catch your eye.
Lorraine Vivian Hensberry was president of the School Forum Club and a gym secretary. She told the world she wanted to be a journalist.
Lorraine Hensberry and Mrs. Motley would have been about the same age. Would their paths have crossed at a high school game or forum debates? Would they have known any of Louise Barwick's students from Clissold? Doubtless, Mrs. Motley would have happily lent out Hansberry's masterpiece, A Raisin in the Sun, in the Parkland School Library where she worked.
Hensberry wrote A Raisin in the Sun in 1957, drawing inspiration from neighbors and other people she knew while growing up in Chicago,
as well as from her family's experience buying a home in a mostly white neighborhood governed by racially restrictive covenants, rules written into property deeds that prevented white property owners from selling to blacks.
Hensberry's new neighbors did not welcome her family. They were threatened by a white mob, and a brick was thrown through their window.
This experience features prominently in A Raisin in the Sun. The character Mama dreams of buying a little home in Morgan Park, but finds a better price on a home in fictional Clybourne Park, a majority white neighborhood with a less than welcoming block club.
A Raisin in the Sun premieres in 1959. The cast headlined by Cynthia Portier as Walter and Claudia McNeil as Mama. Opened to tryouts here in Chicago at the Blackstone Theater. Later that year, A Raisin in the Sun opened on Broadway, won a New York Drama Critics Circle Award, was nominated for 4 Tony Awards, and ran for 530 performances. The play has been since adapted into many film versions and a musical, and has been revived on stage countless times.
In Chicago, theaters across the city have staged Hansberry's work, from community groups like the Stateway Community Players and the Lincoln Park Players to professional theaters including Goodman and Steppenwolf. In Raisin's 25th anniversary year, the Goodman opened their 1983-84 season with a production starring Jackie Taylor as Ruth and Brent Jennings as Walter. Would Mrs. Motley have attended? Maybe with her neighbors, Mr. McTeer and the Powells. How would she have critiqued the play?
Fictional or real, black or white, welcoming or not, Chicago, a place we call a city of neighborhoods, is full of different lives.
Eric Charles May challenges us to ask many questions. Who are the people in your neighborhood? Who were the people in your neighborhood? How will they be remembered?
How do different people contribute to the feel of a neighborhood?
How does the feel of a neighborhood contribute to its residents' characters? What does it mean to be part of a community? Take a dive into an archive, and you just might find out. Thank you for joining us for this tour of some of our neighborhood collections here in Special Collections.
Yes, come and join us. You will have a great time.
We're open by appointment only right now, but you can come see these things and others.
Yes, come, bear witness to what we have.
And come be our neighbor.